Good morning, my friend. Today, we're going to do a deep dive into Torah. We already learned about davening, how davening takes us up from Shabbos to Shabbosin, Lahavaya, from regular Shabbos, which regular Shabbos is I'm mizbeinin during the week, and I'm moiled Avos Hashem. And then when comes Shabbos, I'm a keli to Ratzin Ha'elyon. V'Ratza Banu, Hashem puts a Ratzin in us, a new want, a new desire to connect to Hashem. And that is, we're going to discuss now how Torah is similar, but it's different, and how you have to daven first before you could get the inspiration from learning. And we are going to contrast Torah versus mitzvahs, even though both of them, like we said a few days ago, mitzvahs has 7 components and Torah has 7 components, but one is a makif, one's a pnimi. V'hinei, we're on page Peiches, the second amud. Paragraph starts V'hinei. V'hinei ha'idei Torah mamshichim gam kein ratzain ha'elyon she'yisla beish beratzain hatachtein. Through learning Torah, I accomplished the exact same objective that I do through davening. I draw down the Ratzin Ha'elyon, like we said before. There's the Zohar says there are 2 types of Ratzin: Is Ratzin, V'Is Ratzin. There's a Ratzin that's higher than Seichel, higher than than my intelligence, and then there's a Ratzin that's under my Seichel. There's a Ratzin that comes developed through my feelings when I'm davening, and there's a Ratzin that's higher than my feelings. Now, the problem we have with this statement is that the Zohar tells me something else about Torah. This is what the Alter Rebbe is going to focus on right now. But it says in the Zohar that the Eraisa Torah mechachma nafkas, it comes out of chachma, which at the face value would mean that Torah is the ratzin that's lower than Seichel. It comes out of Seichel. Says the Alter Rebbe, you have to be careful with how you learn this there. It doesn't mean that it originates from Chachma. It means, he's going to say what it means is that Chachma reveals Torah. In other words, there's 2 ways to look at Torah. One way is, I'm learning Gemara. I'm learning about Chersh and Chesapara. I'm learning about Ruvain grabbed the talis. 2 people grabbed the talis. That looks like a very practical experience from this world that happens every single day. Doesn't sound very holy. Or I could look at it a whole different way. In reality, Torah really is a spiritual experience. It discusses spiritual challenges and spiritual experiences. But Hashem wanted that I should be able to also connect to Torah. So what did He do? Through Chachma, Hashem now processed Torah that it should be in a way that I could experience it. Now Torah is talking about an ox. Now it's talking about the beams in the Mishkan, for example. There's actual physical beams. Really, there's a spiritual Mishkan in the spiritual world, much higher than Chachma. And that's what that is what the Alter Rebbe is saying. It's taka true that Torah, there's an expression that you could, Torah medaberes ba'elyonim v'reimezes b'tachtonim. Or I could say Torah medaberes b'tachtonim v'reimezes ba'elyonim. Is Torah talking about our physical world by default? And it's hinting to spiritual worlds. So, the Rebbe once brought in a sikha that the word behema, which means animal, is really an abbreviation. So we have the word behema. The Rebbe brings this word in Holy Svarim that behema, could you see that? Behema is really a Rashi Tevis. Basar hayored min hashamayim. It's meat that came down from heaven, meaning to say that when you learn that Torah speaks about behema, it's talking about a spiritual basar. It's not talking about an actual steak that we have in this physical world. It's talking about a spiritual steak. But once it gets processed through Chachma, from Chachma, now it's revealed and it's talking about actually an animal in our world. That's what Alter Rebbe is being medayik, and he's saying it's not that Torah originates from Chachma. Torah really is a spiritual experience. And if the Torah would come down as that spiritual experience, I wouldn't understand what it was talking about. We're talking about spiritual cows, spiritual meat, spiritual fights. I wouldn't understand. So what Hashem did, that I should be able to understand what the Torah is talking about. It uses an expression of Yad Hashem, that we're coming out to going out of Mitzrayim, Pesach. It says that Hashem took the Eden out with a strong arm. Hashem doesn't have an arm. It's l'shachech. Alter Rebbe says, brings from Chazal, that I should be able to hear what the Torah is saying. The source of Torah really is Ratzin Ha'elyon. Since it's for Ratzin Ha'elyon, and Chachma only brings it down. To explain what that is basically, we know the anatomy of the brain. A person, you have the face, right? On the face, I have my 5 senses. And then I have the skull, which goes down to somewhere around here. This is the skull. Now the skull is a very thin bone that's very strong, and it protects my brain, but it's higher than my brain. So my brain, here is my seichel, here is Chachma. The Chachma is in the brain. This is called Keser. Keser literally means a crown. Now if I have the 613 mitzvahs of the Rabbanon, I have 613, plus I have 7 mitzvahs that our Chachamim told us, plus that is 7 plus 3 is 10, which makes it 20, and so it's 620. Keser is also B'Gematria 620, because I have Tov is 400, Reish is 200, and Chaf is 20. If I add that up, it's 620. So the reason why all the mitzvahs, 613 mitzvahs, and the 7 mitzvahs that are Rabbanan equal 620, which is the gematria, the numerical value of Keser, is because Torah really, its natural habitat is really Keser, which is higher than Seichel. Nervous then, Torah descends into the physical world, so I could experience it and I could understand it. And that's what it means. The Torah did not originate in Chachma, but Chachma, once it comes down to Chachma, now it's something which I could comprehend, I could relate to it. It's actually a behema that I could relate to. A basar, hayered min hashamayim, I don't know what to do with it. I don't know how it looks. I don't know how to interact with it. V'chulu v'dal. But from Ratzin Ha'elyon, it's enclosed in the midas. Chagas, Chesed, Gevura, Tiferes de Atzilus. Of the world of Atzilus, which we explained already, I believe last week, that there are 4 spiritual worlds, which are the Seder Hishtalshalos, they're how the energy comes down from Hashem to our physical world, and it filters down the light. And the first world is the world of Atzilus. The world of Atzilus is very connected to Hashem. And there, the first 3 midas of Chesed, Gevurah, Tiferes, Shebi B'chinas Chesed, Mishach Lehakilis, Kasher, Mutter, V'zaki, from the side of Chesed, which is really explained in Bereshis in the Maimer Erden of Ere. There's a whole explanation that's in Kam Mekoyim L'Harich B'zeh, that when a person, Beishamim V'Silil argue Why is one machmer and one mekel? The reason is because their neshama comes, the neshama that comes from chesed, they're going to be mekel, and the one that neshama comes from gevura is going to be machmer. From gevura comes to be machmer. Midas are lower than chachma. I don't know if we have space for here to make a caricature. So we have over here the midas. The right side is chesed, and the left side is gevura. So the right arm is chesed, the left arm is gevura. But the chesed and the gevura are getting energy and inspiration from the brain, from the seichel. It's lamata mea seichel. So the Torah starts by keser, starts from the skull. Chachma allows the Torah to come out into a way that I could relate to it. And then, from chachma comes the gevura and chesed, which chesed is where we're more lenient, it's kosher, and gevura is where we're more strict, that it comes not kosher. Comes out that the idea of Torah is drawing down Ratzon Ha'elyon that's higher in the Ratzon HaTachton. So in other words, to say it in other words, Keser is Das Elyon. Ratzon Ha'elyon. And this is Ratzon Tachton. So Keser, the skull, is a Keser. Can you see that? Which is Ratzon Ha'elyon. And the Gevura and Chesed, kosher, not kosher, is Ratzon Tachton. So really, Torah really connects it. When I learn Torah over here, this is when I'm opening a Shulchan Aruch, I'm opening a Gemara, I'm holding over here. This is where the Gemara is. I'm drawing down from Ratzon Ha'elyon into my Ratzon HaTachton. Bechinas Das Tachton, which that's the idea of Das Tachton. Bechinas Pnimius Hamidus Keneda, which that's the idea of the Midas, the innermost of the Midas, like it's known. I'll try to say in parentheses because it's not the main topic of this Maimer, but there are Maimerim which discuss the idea of Berchu B'Torah Tchila, that before I learn, I need to daven first, or else my learning is not going to come out the way I want it to come out. This Hamshacha through Torah is impossible to draw down unless I first davened. Because I have to get up to Ratzon Ha'elyon, and the way I get up to Ratzon Ha'elyon is with a ladder. So first I need to climb up to Ratzon Ha'elyon, which that's with the ladder of davening. So step one is I first need to climb up with my this is step one. Step one is tefillah, and step two is to bring down from here into here. Once I'm on top, when I'm on top, then I can bring it down. But if I'm not down, I can. If I'm down, I can't schlep it down unless I have some type of contraption. But apparently that's the system. I do step one first, and step two is drawing Torah down from Ratzon. I climb up. So I start over here. I climb up to Ratzon Ha'elyon through davening, and then through learning after davening, I draw down the Ratzon Ha'elyon back into Ratzon HaTachton. And also specifically through prefacing Shabbos, which Shabbos is the same letters as Tashiv. Alias Ratzon HaTachton B'Ratzon Ha'elyon. The idea of Shabbos is the idea of Tashiv, same letters as Tashiv, which Tashiv is the idea of returning. Over here, Tefillah is the idea of Shabbos. It's also the idea of Shabbos, which is Oisius Tashiv. I don't know if you could see these small letters. I may have to buy myself a bigger. bored. A lot of information over here. So tefillah is Shabbos, which is Oisius Toshiv, because I'm returning back to my source. I didn't start down here. I started in a higher level, and my soul descended into this world. Yidid is an neshama b'guf. And now I'm going back. Toshiv, the idea of Shabbos is Toshiv, returning to my home base. I'm returning to my home base. And then I bring down the Ratzon Elyon back into Ratzon HaTachton. So I want to just explain this idea because we're going to get to it soon in the Maimer. So I want to explain this idea of a Susa de Le'ela and a Susa de L'Sata. So we have it clear when we get to it. There's basically the world, the way Hashem created the world is that there's something called a Mashpia and a Mekabel. There is a Mashpia and Mekabel. We have a Mashpia and we have a Mekabel. The Mashpia and Mekabel, the Mekabel brings up what's called a man. And the Mashpia brings up what's called mad. Which we're going to discuss soon, so I just want to discuss it now as Akdama, since we mentioned the first time. We have Mashpia and Mekabel. There's different examples of Mashpia and Mekabel. So an example of Mashpia and Mekabel would be, I put a seed in the ground. Okay? So that might get a little more complicating. A simple Mashpia and Mekabel, good mashal Mashpia Mekabel would be a teacher and a student. So the teacher is the Mashpia and the student is the Mekabel. So we have a teacher and a student. The student first needs to show interest that he's interested in learning. If the student doesn't want to learn, the teacher will not be motivated to teach him. So the student asks a question, let's say, the student. Make it more visual. The student asks the question. That is called meinukvin. The student asks the question, initiates with the teacher. Now the teacher, that's the mashpia, he's the sage on the stage. He now is going to give the answer. Okay, that's a very basic thing. So we have the meinukvin and we have the meinduchin. The meinukvin always goes up. It's always going up. The meinduchin is always going down. Okay? It's bringing it down to the level of the Mekabel. Because what the teacher understands is intense. He understands a lot. In order to give to the Mekabel, so if the Mekabel didn't ask the question, the Mashpia cannot answer it, because the Mekabel needs to be a keli for it. That would be suffice for now. If we need any more explanations, I will definitely bring it up as we go. So the Torah is parallel to the vessels of the Mishkan, which they are the menorah and the shulchan. Especially for the luchos, the aron, which the luchos was actually inside it. Difference is that the Torah, the luchos in the aron, is how the Torah is in its source. It's how it's in the Ratzon HaElyon. So b'meila, since it's in the Ratzon HaElyon, here we go. So the luchos is how the Torah is over here in the Ratzon HaElyon. Can you see the whole thing? Sure, you can see the whole thing. How it's in the Ratzon HaElyon over here. It's how the Torah. Oh, here, this might be better. How the Torah is in its source. See that better over there? Good, hopefully. The level, the menorah that's in the Heichel is the revelation of the Torah and the Midas. So Here's the luchais, and here's the Torah in the menorah and the lechem hapanim, which that's how it's in midas, a place where I can relate to. It's talking about behema, not here's behema, which is basar yir min shamayim. This is spiritual basar. Here's talking about steak that I understand. This is what it says in Sheschail about Torah, that it's her mouth opens with wisdom, and the Torah of Chesed, it's on her tongue. Torah is called Chachma and it's called Chesed because it depends. When it's over here, it's Chachma. When it descends down through the process, Hashem lowered it down. Vayered Hashem al Har Sinai. Now it's called Chesed. Because through Chachma, the Torah, which is really Ratzon Elyon, now could express itself and come into a way that I can relate to it. This is the Arein, and this is how it's enclosed in Chesed. That's the idea of the Menorah, which was in the Darim, the idea of Chesed. Just like the Menorah, we light in it light. Now I want to discuss this idea of the Menorah. See if we have room over here. I have to get more whiteboards. Looks like there's a lot of stuff over here we have to discuss. But let's see if we could fit it in. So we have the menorah. Now the menorah had 6 rods coming out. 2, 3. There were 6 rods because there were 6. There's now. Just drawing this takes so much energy. So complicated. I don't know how they made it. Wow. Okay, so we have the menorah here. Can you see that? Beautiful. Beautiful. So that's the idea of the Aron, which was in the Midas in general are Chesed. The first midah is Chesed, and that includes all the other midas, because every single midah is an expression of Chesed. Even Gevura is part of Chesed, because if I don't have a healthy boundary, I cannot have any Chesed. That's the menorah, which was in Darim, which that's the idea of Chesed. Just like the menorah, you use it to light up the place. Torah also, it says, and Torah is light. The Torah, what's the idea of the light of Torah? Like it says, Chochmas Adam Ta'ir Panov. The wisdom of a person shines his face. You see, a person who's wise, his face is shining. What's the shine? It's the shine of the wisdom, of the Chochmah. Our sages tell us that there's a pasuk which refers to the 6 Sidrei Mishnah. Emunas is Roim, and gets the Chochmas. Chochmas is the Kachim, is this the order of Kachim, which that whole section of the Mishnah is also divided into 6 categories, and that category talks about sacrifice. Daily would say the kachim through learning about the say the kachim. You awaken and draw down the level of chachmeilah, that it shows, so to speak, shine the face, meaning to bring down into a place where we could, the face, like we said before, is the midas. So the Chachma, you bring down the Chachmas Adam Ta'ir Panav, you bring from the Chachma over here into the face of the person. What's the idea of a shining face? Just like how it is by us. When you understand a new idea, something you never understood before, your face shines. Our sages, our Chachamim say that Rabavo, when he saw a new Tosefta that he never saw, Tosefta is like a Mishnah. We'll get into the details of the difference, but it's like a Mishnah. He found like a Tosefta, and his face shined. He was so excited that he found it. Why was he shining? The shining on the face comes, it's an expression of pleasure. That's enclosed and revealed in this new understanding. And that pleasure is expressed through the face until the face shines. So too, when you're learning Torah, it's not just that you're learning Torah. What happens when you learn Torah, you're drawing down a revelation of a supernal tainug, meaning it's coming from a tainug from up here, a pleasure from up here, from the Ratzin Ha'elyon, that it should shine now into Chachma. You bring it down into Chachma, into the Midas. So you're actually affecting, because by default Torah is really over here. Every time you learn Torah, you're drawing him down. You're calling the Ratzin Ha'elyon to draw down into Chachma, and through Chachma into Chesed and Gevura. Wow. That's a new light from the core of the infinite energy of Hashem. That it's enclosed in the wisdom of Torah. So that's the idea that Hashem, that the Birchas Kohanim, the bracha is Yar Hashem Panav Eilecha. What does it mean Hashem should shine His face? That the Ratzin Ha'elyon from Atzmos, even higher than Ratzin Ha'elyon, from Atzmos and Nitziv Baruch Hu, should come into Chachma Ilah, Chachma Vatzilus. So this is also the idea of the light. This is the same thing of the light of the menorah, because the menorah is the light from the Torah. Oh, so now we're by the menorah. Hopefully this is enough. I just don't want to raise this because we're going to get to this soon. We're going to get back to this Mayin Duchen and Mayin Nukvin, and I wanted to be here so you could chap what's going on. So even gamkin zayin kanei menera hainu kana hamtzoi sheguf hamnera shleisha kanim yitzim mitzad echad. So we have the 7 poles of the menorah. We have the middle one, and then 3 from each side. You know what? We're going to color it in so it's more clear, because or else it's hard to see between the poles and what's in between them. So I'm going to color it in. And there's 3 from the other side. Now, where every single 2, where the 2 of them meet, the first 2 meet, there's a kafter. There's like a little ball over there, like a button almost. Where the second 2 meet, there's also a ball, like a button. Each one where the 2 meet, there's a button. Now, Rebbe is now going to explain its significance spiritually and kabbalistically and chassidically. So what I understand so far, the middle one is chesed, and where the first 2 come out, there's a kafter, there's a metal button that protrudes. It's actually, I could really use these things if I made a bigger menorah. Maybe we'll do that. A little cooler. Actually, we don't have time, so I'm just going to keep it like that. But think of it as something which is protruding, almost like a button, like this, that's popping out. It's taking double the space. Then shemakim sheitim shekan echel lekan vechel lekan sham yesh kafter chuli v'chein tachas shnei hakonim hashnim tachas shnei hakonim hashlishim, also under the second one, also the third one. What's the idea? Ki kol zeh reimez al klolos haTorah sheTorah shebichsav v'Torah shebal peh. All this refers to the general idea of Torah. I think we're going to have to make a bigger one because we have a lot of information to write over here. Torah shebichsav v'Torah shebal peh. So give me one moment. I'm going to quickly make a new menorah, a larger size, and we're going to use these kaftorim, our magnetic ones. So we have over here the middle one, which I believe is chesed. Then we have from this kafter comes out 2 poles, this kafter another 2 poles, this kafter, and altogether we have 7. Says the Alter Rebbe, this is referring to Torah Shebechsav and Torah Shebal Peh. Zayin shisha kanim yayitzim min kanim tzay shem shisha sidei mishnah shem kal min kanim tzay shehu b'chinas Torah Shebechsav. Oh, so I made a mistake. This is Torah Shebechsav. We call it chumash. Like with the red ones, it's clearer. The middle one is the chumash, and here's the 6 mishnayos, which they're going to be, write them down. Zerayim Moyed. So we have Zerayim Moyed, all the 6 Shishei Sidei Mishnah. So the middle one is Torah Shebechsav, and the 6 ones coming out are Torah Shebal Peh. What's the reason? Every time we look in any of the Siddharim, we have a question, the Gemara says, what's the source? Going back to the Pasuk. So the Pasuk is the source for all the 6 Sidrei Mishnah, 6 Sidrei Mishnah that come out of it. If we look in any of the What's the idea of the kafter? Why is there a button over here? The reason is because this point is where the mashpia, Torah Shebechsav, is giving to Torah Shebal Peh. And I explained to you before I erased this, that every interaction between a mashpia and a kabel, the Torah Shebechsav is the mashpia, and Torah Shebal Peh is the mekabel. There needs to be a mad and man. Man is my nukvin, the feminine energy. Torah Shebal Peh is the feminine because it's accepting from the Torah Shebal Peh, Torah Shebechsav, and then Torah Shebal Peh, Torah Shebechsav. Torah Shebechsav is called the father Musar Avicha. That's the father, that's the mashpia. But Torah Shebal Peh nikra Torah Simecha b'chinas nukva mekabel b'Torah Shebechsav. Like the Sham Nigdal Hashbachuli. Torah Shebal Peh is called Imecha, Torah's Imecha, the Torah of your mother, which it's not, there's no originality there. The father, Torah Shebechsav, is the originality, it's the novelty. It's coming up with bringing the new hashpas. But by the mother, the baby grows in the mother's stomach and gets extrapolated from a seed into a full-formed baby. So too, Torah Shebal Peh extrapolates from the pasuk and explains it with all the details. For example, we're coming to Hilchas Pesach. The Torah just says very clear, very short. There shouldn't be any chametz in your house. It shouldn't be found. It shouldn't be seen. And there's a whole masechta. There's a whole masechta of Mishnayos, a whole Gemara, Shulchan Aruch. They say claim discussing and extrapolating the details, but everything comes from a source. When you go back to the source of it, nothing in Gemara, Mishnayos, or Shulchan Aruch is not backed up by a pasuk. So since over here, like I said before, the Makabel sends out a signal, asks a question, and we get the answer from the Torah. Since over here there's halas man and halas mad, therefore there's much more energy than just one. Over here it's just the mashpia, here just the Makabel. Over here it's the mashpia and Makabel interacting with each other, therefore it's thicker. Over here the mashpia and Makabel is communicating with each other, it's thicker, and that's why there's these kaftorim, these buttons signify communication between the mashpia and makabel, between Torah Shebechsav and Torah Sheba'al Peh. The Zohar calls it knots, just like a knot. You connect 2 things together. When you tie a knot, the spot of the knot on the rope is thicker, because over there you are connecting two separate ropes together. So that's the menorah. So the shulchan also refers to the Torah. On the Torah, we place the lechem hapanim, the showbread. Torah is called bread, like it says in the pasuk. Eat your bread with my bread. Why is Torah called bread? Because it's like food to the soul, just like your body needs to eat food to survive. Your soul also needs energy. The Rebbe explains it in Tanya. I believe it's Parakeh. But a certain point of the yichud, the fact that Torah is a sirascha b'seich meyai, the Torah goes into me, meaning I didn't understand the Torah. Now I understand Torah. My brain is encompassing the understanding of Torah, and that gives mazil nefesh. It gives my soul sustenance. That the revelation should be in a more internal way, in a way that my soul could relate to it. That my brain, my physical brain, understands Torah, which in Torah is enclosed the infinite energy of Hashem. So it's not just the energy that's floating around; it's the energy that I could digest and understand it, and gives me chayis. Therefore, it gives energy to my soul. Also, when I learn Torah, like I said before, when I learn Torah, I'm causing. What's the idea of food? The idea of food is that the soul is like a flame. The flame wants to flick around and leave the body. With oil, the flame now is stuck here in the wick. So too, my neshama wants to leave the body, because remember, the body is a very limited experience. How enjoyable the experience is, I only use my five senses. The soul, the neshama, is unlimited and has much more rich and deeper experience outside of the body. So what keeps my neshama in my body? Every day I eat. That's the fuel that keeps the neshama and the guf together. So too, Hashem, Be'etzem, we explained, is really atzmos, is really higher than any type of spiritual world. Every spiritual world is Yeridah Yisbarach. It's a descent. Hashem has to, so to speak, contract himself to communicate with us and to interact with us. So what caused that Hashem should want to come down, so to speak? It's through learning Torah. We're drawing down a new in Tzayif from Atzmos. So all that is Torah. But mitzvahs are garments. And it's something that surrounds because we're drawing down through mitzvahs, we're drawing down a much higher level than Torah, which cannot be, since it's so high, it cannot be accepted, it can't be absorbed in my pnimius. Rather, the light of Hashem surrounds me from my head to my foot. Like we explained 2 days ago and 3 days ago, that is the Yeriyas, 3 days ago, that is the Yeriyas HaMishkan, the tarp of the Mishkan. We already explained that mitzvahs also have 7 components. Also, the tarp also had 7 threads and material. So Torah and mitzvahs both have 7. The difference is that in Torah, it's makifim, and in mitzvahs, it's premium. Have a wonderful day.